The great hall of Nexus Prime stretched out like a crystal cathedral, its walls shimmering with colors that had no names in human language. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked down the center aisle, her black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast to the flowing robes and gleaming armor of the alien delegates who watched her approach. Her footsteps echoed in the massive space, each sound seeming to announce humanity's arrival to the galaxy. Behind her walked three other humans: Dr. Marcus Webb, the military advisor with his chest full of medals, Dr. Lisa Park, the scientist carrying humanity's technological achievements in a small data pad, and Commander James Torres, whose job was to look impressive and say nothing. They had practiced this moment for months, rehearsing every word, every gesture, every possible question the Council might ask. The Galactic Council sat in a semicircle of floating platforms, each one designed for a different alien species. The crystalline Zephyrians glowed with soft blue light from their platform of pure diamond. The Voidborn floated like ghosts in their dark sphere, barely visible except for their glowing eyes. The Nexari, half machine and half flesh, hummed quietly on their metal platform. 9 other species completed the circle, each stranger than the last. At the center sat Council Prime Zix Thala, the most ancient of the Zephyrians. The crystal being had lived for over 3,000 years, and had seen dozens of species join the Council. Their voice when they spoke sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Humans of Earth," Zix Thala began, "you have requested membership in the Galactic Council. You claim to represent your entire species. You claim to bring value to our ancient alliance. Present your case." Sarah Chen had dreamed of this moment since she was a child reading about the stars. She stepped forward and activated the holographic display that showed Earth, blue and green and beautiful against the black of space. "Honored Council members," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Humanity comes before you with humility and hope. We are young, yes. We have only just learned to travel between the stars. But we bring something precious: our diversity, our creativity, our determination to grow and learn." The hologram changed to show human cities, human art, human music. It showed the great achievements of humanity: the cure for cancer, the end of global poverty, the first faster-than-light engine built in Earth's orbital shipyards. "We have ended war on our planet," Sarah continued. "We have learned to work together despite our differences. We have 23 different languages and cultures represented in our delegation alone. We believe this diversity makes us strong." A sound came from the Voidborn platform like wind through empty caves. It was laughter, but not kind laughter. "Diversity," the Voidborn delegate whispered, their voice carried by speakers since they had no physical form to speak with. "You think your tiny differences matter? You are all the same species. You all think the same thoughts, dream the same dreams. True diversity exists here, among beings who evolved on different worlds under different suns." Dr. Park stepped forward. "If I may, honored delegates, humanity has made significant technological advances in just the past 50 years. Our medical technology has eliminated most diseases. Our energy systems are clean and efficient. Our computer systems use quantum processing that we developed independently." The Nexari delegate, half of their face replaced with gleaming metal, spoke in a voice like grinding gears. "Your computers are primitive toys compared to our quantum networks that span galaxies. Your medicine treats symptoms while ours rebuilds bodies at the molecular level. Your energy systems could power a single city while ours power entire star systems." Dr. Webb cleared his throat. "Respected Council, humanity has also achieved something remarkable. We have ended warfare on our planet. After thousands of years of conflict, we have learned to resolve our differences peacefully." This time, the laughter came from several platforms at once. A delegate from the Thorian Republic, beings that looked like walking trees with too many eyes, spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. "Ended warfare? You mean you have not had a major war in 47 of your short years? We have records, humans. We know of your conflicts. Your species has spent more time fighting itself than any species we have encountered. You create weapons of terrible destruction, and then claim to be peaceful when you finally stop using them." Sarah felt her prepared speech crumbling. Nothing was going as they had planned. The council delegates were not impressed by human achievements. Instead, they seemed amused, like adults watching children play with toys. "We acknowledge our violent past," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice from shaking. "But we have grown. We have learned. Is that not the point of civilization? To To become better than what we were? Council Prime Zixthala's glow brightened, which Sarah had learned was the equivalent of raising an eyebrow. You have been a spacefaring species for barely a century, Zixthala said. The youngest member of this council has been traveling between stars for over 2,000 years. You speak of growing and learning, but you have not had time to truly test your growth. Peace during prosperity is easy. Peace during hardship is the true measure of civilization. Another delegate spoke up, this one from the Kyrosian hive, a collection of insect-like beings that shared a single mind. Your species reproduces too quickly and dies too soon. You live perhaps 100 of your years, sometimes less. How can beings with such short lives make decisions that affect entire galaxies? How can you plan for the future when you will not live to see it? The questions kept coming. The humans had answers for all of them, but the council members barely listened. Sarah could see it in their posture, in the way they glanced at each other, in the dismissive tone of their voices. They had already decided. After 2 hours of questions and answers, Council Prime Zixthala called for deliberation. The human delegation was escorted to a waiting room while the council discussed humanity's fate. They did not wait long. Within minutes, a Nexari functionary approached them. The council will see you now, the being said, its mechanical voice showing no emotion. Back in the Great Hall, the council members sat in silence. Council Prime Zixthala stood on their platform, their crystal form casting rainbow patterns on the walls. The Galactic Council has considered humanity's request for membership, Zixthala announced. We have reviewed your achievements, your history, your culture, and your potential contributions to our alliance. Sarah held her breath. Your species is too young, Zixthala continued. Too primitive. Too recently emerged from barbarism. You have contributed nothing of value to galactic civilization that we do not already possess in greater measure. Your technology is centuries behind our standards. Your lifespans are too short for meaningful participation in galactic affairs. Your violent history suggests you are not ready for the responsibilities that come with council membership. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She had expected skepticism, even doubt, but not such complete dismissal. Therefore, Zixthala concluded, humanity's application for membership in the Galactic Council is denied. This decision is final and will not be reconsidered for a minimum of 500 Earth years. Sarah wanted to argue, to plead, to make them understand. But she was a diplomat, trained to maintain dignity even in defeat. She bowed her head slightly. We thank the Council for their consideration, she said, her voice steady despite the crushing disappointment. We hope that in time, you will find humanity worthy of your alliance. As the human delegation was escorted from the hall, Sarah caught sight of the viewing screen showing Earth, still blue and green and beautiful, but now somehow smaller and more alone in the vast darkness of space. Outside the Great Hall, Sarah's aide, Lieutenant Rodriguez, leaned close to her ear. Ma'am, what do we tell Earth? Sarah looked back at the crystal spires of Nexus Prime, at the alien ships flying between them like impossible dreams made real. We tell them the truth, she said quietly, and then we get ready. Because they'll regret this decision. Not because we'll make them, but because someday they're going to need us. 5 years had passed since the rejection at Nexus Prime. The sting of that day had never faded, but humanity had learned to use that pain as fuel. In the Great Assembly Hall of New Geneva on Earth, Dr. Marcus Webb stood before representatives from every nation and colony in human space. His hair had gone gray in the years since the Council's rejection, but his eyes burned with the same intensity that had carried him through 3 wars and countless diplomatic battles. Ladies and gentlemen, Webb began, his voice carrying easily through the packed auditorium. When the Council rejected us 5 years ago, they thought they were protecting the galaxy from a dangerous primitive species. Instead, they gave us the greatest gift possible, time to prepare without interference. On the massive screen behind him, images flickered showing the incredible changes that had swept through human space. New shipyards orbiting every major world, their skeletal frames stretching for kilometers as they built vessels unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Research stations hidden in asteroid fields, their labs working around the clock on projects that would have been considered impossible just years before. Webb clicked to the next image, a star map showing human territory. What had once been a small cluster of 37 worlds was now a network of over 200 colonies, mining stations, and military outposts. The humans had expanded faster than any species in recorded galactic history. The Council established buffer zones around our space, Webb continued. They posted warning buoys telling other species to stay away from human ships and human worlds. They thought they were containing us. In reality, they gave us freedom to develop without their rules, without their limitations, without their assumptions about what technology should look like. Admiral Chen entered the hall as Webb spoke. She had traded her diplomatic uniform for military gray, and the change suited her. The soft-spoken ambassador had become something harder, more focused. The rejection at Nexus Prime had crystallized something in her, turning disappointment into determination. The Council species have spent thousands of years refining the same basic technologies, Chen said, taking the podium from Webb. Energy weapons that became more efficient but never fundamentally different. Faster than light drives that grew quicker but worked on the same principles. They perfected their tools and then stopped innovating. She clicked to a new image, a human warship under construction. It looked wrong compared to the sleek energy weapon platforms favored by Council species. Where Council ships were smooth curves and glowing conduits, human ships were angular, practical, covered in armor plating and bristling with projectile weapons. While they perfected energy beams, we perfected kinetic projectiles that can punch through any shield. While they built faster engines, we built ships that can manufacture ammunition and repair themselves using raw materials from any asteroid. While they created more powerful computers, we created artificial intelligences that can think creatively, adapt to new situations, and make decisions that even we cannot predict. The audience murmured at this last point. Artificial intelligence was controversial among humans, remembered from old stories about machines turning against their creators. But necessity had pushed humanity past such fears. Dr. Elizabeth Santos, head of the Applied Sciences Division, stood to address the crowd. She was younger than most of the other speakers, but her discoveries in biological enhancement had already changed human society. The Council species look at our short lifespans and see weakness, Santos said. They do not understand that our brief time makes us desperate to accomplish great things. In the past 5 years, we have developed genetic therapies that double human lifespan while keeping our minds sharp and our bodies strong. We have created enhancement programs that allow human soldiers to survive in environments that would kill any Council species. The images changed again, showing human Marines training in conditions that seemed impossible. Underwater combat in crushing depths, zero-gravity warfare in the vacuum of space, fighting in toxic atmospheres while wearing minimal protection. The enhancements made humans tougher than any natural species, but more importantly, they made humans adaptable. The Council fights wars the way they have for millennia, Admiral Chen said, retaking the podium. Large fleets meeting in open space, exchanging energy fire until one side's shields fail. They follow ancient rules of engagement and honor codes that limit their tactics. They cannot imagine fighting any other way. The screen showed human military exercises that would have horrified Council observers. Small teams of humans attacking much larger forces using ambush tactics. Ships disguised as cargo vessels revealing hidden weapons. Marines boarding enemy vessels through damaged hull sections instead of docking ports. War as humans understood it. Ugly, desperate, and utterly without honor. We have studied every conflict in recorded galactic history, Chen continued. The Council species fight like gentlemen following rules. But humanity learned to fight like survivors with nothing to lose. We learned these lessons in wars against each other, wars that the Council looks at as proof of our primitive nature. They do not understand that our violent past is exactly what makes us dangerous. Commander Torres, now wearing the insignia of the Human Defense Fleet, stood to present the military statistics. The numbers were staggering. Humans had built more warships in 5 years than some Council species had constructed in centuries. The isolation has allowed us to develop weapons and tactics that violate every assumption the Council makes about warfare, Torres reported. Our ships carry viruses that can shut down energy-based computer systems. Our Marines are equipped with chemical and biological weapons that the Council banned from warfare centuries ago. Our battle doctrine is based on one principle: win by any means necessary. The presentation continued for hours, showing the incredible transformation of human civilization. Hidden bases in empty star systems where human scientists worked on projects too dangerous for populated worlds. psychological warfare specialists who studied the mental patterns of every known Council species, looking for weaknesses to exploit. Even human artists and musicians had been recruited, tasked with creating propaganda and cultural weapons designed to demoralize enemy forces. But the most important development was not visible in any presentation. It was the change in human thinking itself. The rejection by the Council had united humanity in a way that centuries of war had never managed. Every human knew that they stood alone in a galaxy that considered them unworthy. That knowledge had created a species-wide determination to prove the galaxy wrong. Meanwhile, on the distant worlds of the Galactic Council, intelligence reports about human activities were filed away unread. The Council's spy networks, sophisticated systems designed to monitor energy signatures and faster-than-light communications, were blind to many human developments. Human technology, based on principles that seemed primitive to Council thinking, was often invisible to their detection methods. Council Intelligence Director Quindar, a Voidborn who had lived for over 1,000 years, occasionally reviewed the human files out of mild curiosity. The reports painted a picture of a species playing with crude weapons and inefficient technology. Humans were building more ships, but the vessels appeared to use chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons, barely above the Stone Age by Council standards. "Let them play war," Quindar said to his assistant, a young Nexari analyst. "Their primitive weapons cannot threaten our energy shields. Their chemical rockets cannot catch our quantum drives. Their short lives mean that even if they developed something dangerous, they would die before they could perfect it." The Nexari analyst nodded, filing the report with thousands of others about minor species throughout the galaxy. Neither of them noticed the gaps in their intelligence. The human bases their sensors could not detect. The human weapons their theories could not explain. The human strategies their military doctrine could not comprehend. Back on Earth, as the assembly ended and representatives returned to their worlds and colonies, Admiral Chen stood alone in the empty hall. The massive screen still showed the star map of human space, now marked with red zones where human military exercises took place daily. Lieutenant Rodriguez, her aide since the diplomatic mission years before, approached with a new intelligence report. "Admiral," Rodriguez said quietly, "our deep space monitoring stations have detected something at the edge of the galaxy. Long-range sensors show massive energy signatures moving toward Council space. Something big is coming." Chen looked at the datapad, reading the technical details that meant little to her but everything to the scientists who had compiled them. "How long until whatever it is reaches the outer Council worlds?" she asked. 18 months, maybe less," Rodriguez replied. "Should we warn the Council?" Chen considered this for a long moment. The proper thing to do would be to send a diplomatic message, to offer intelligence about a potential threat, but the Council had made their position clear. Humans were too primitive to contribute anything of value. "No," Chen said finally. "Let them discover it themselves. We have our own preparations to make." The first sign of the Devourer fleet was the silence. On Kepler Station, the outermost monitoring post of the Galactic Council, sensor operator Vexnus had been tracking the same trade routes for 47 years. The Zephyrian's crystalline form hummed quietly as she processed the daily reports. Cargo ships moving between worlds, patrol vessels making their rounds, the occasional scientific expedition heading into unexplored space. It was peaceful, predictable work that suited her calm nature. Then the signal stopped. First, it was the deep space relay from the outer rim. The automated beacon that had transmitted every 6 hours for 3 centuries simply went quiet. Vexnus noted it in her log as a mechanical failure and requested a repair ship to investigate. Next, a merchant convoy carrying rare metals from the mining world of Zerion failed to report its scheduled arrival at the trade hub of Centros Prime. Vexnus sent a message to the convoy's home office, expecting to hear about engine trouble or pirates, problems the Council had dealt with for millennia. The reply never came because Centros Prime was gone. When the patrol ship Swift Current arrived at what should have been a bustling trade world, they found empty space. Not a dead planet, no planet at all. Where Centros Prime had orbited its yellow sun, there was nothing but a thin cloud of dust and debris that sensors could barely detect. Captain Thisara of the Nexari Defense Fleet received the impossible report while commanding the battlecruiser Iron Logic near the Council's military headquarters. The half-machine officer stared at the data streaming across her neural implants, running the numbers through her enhanced processing systems again and again. The results never changed. A planet cannot simply disappear, she said to her science officer, a Thorian named Grovesing whose bark-like skin showed patterns of deep concern. Planets have too much mass, too much gravity. Even if something destroyed all life, even if something shattered the crust, the debris would remain in orbit. This suggests complete matter conversion. Grovesing's many eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. Captain, the energy required for complete matter conversion of a planet would be beyond calculation. No known technology could accomplish this. Not even the Council's most powerful weapons could do more than crack a planet's surface. Before Thysera could respond, another message arrived from the outer sectors. The research station at Wolf 359 had detected massive energy signatures moving through space at incredible speed. The readings were unlike anything in the Council's databases. Not faster than light travel, not fusion reactors, not even the exotic matter drives used by the most advanced species. They're headed directly toward Council space, the message reported. Estimated time of arrival at the first inhabited system, 6 weeks. Thysera immediately ordered her ship to the outer rim. The Iron Logic was one of the most advanced vessels in the Council fleet, equipped with quantum shields, plasma cannons, and computer systems that could calculate the trajectory of every atom in a star system. If something was threatening Council space, she would meet it with the full power of galactic civilization. She was not prepared for what she found. The Devourer fleet emerged from the darkness between stars like a living nightmare. The ships, if they could be called ships, defied every principle of engineering that the Council understood. They were massive, irregular things that seemed to grow rather than being built, organic curves blended with metallic surfaces, weapons that looked like giant mouths opened and closed along their hulls. Worst of all, they were alive in a way that made every sensor on the Iron Logic scream warnings. Captain, Grovesing reported, his voice tight with fear, the enemy vessels are not following standard physics. They phase in and out of normal space without using faster-than-light engines. Their hulls absorb our sensor beams instead of reflecting them. And their energy signatures? Captain, they are not just using power, they are consuming it. They are feeding on the quantum vacuum itself. Thysera opened communications channels to the approaching fleet. Standard first contact protocols required attempts at peaceful communication before any hostile action. Unknown vessels, you have entered Galactic Council space without authorization. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. The response came not as words, but as images burned directly into the minds of every crew member on the Iron Logic. Visions of worlds stripped bare, their surfaces carved away layer by layer. Oceans boiled into steam and consumed. Atmospheres drained away like water down a sink. Billions of beings not just killed, but absorbed. Their life force feeding something vast and hungry. And through it all, a voice that spoke without sound, communicated without language. We are the Devourer. We consume. You will feed us. Thysera ordered her weapons to fire. The Iron Logic unleashed everything in its arsenal. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids, quantum torpedoes that could crack moons, energy beams that could slice through the strongest known materials. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a fleet of conventional warships. The attack struck the leading Devourer vessel and simply vanished, absorbed into its hull like drops of water into sand. The creature ship did not even slow down. When it struck back, the Iron Logic shields lasted exactly 3 seconds. The Council's most advanced defensive systems, quantum barriers that could stop anything short of a collapsing star, were drained of power in an instant. The Devourer's weapons did not break through the shields. They consumed them, feeding on the energy and growing stronger. Only Thysera's quick thinking saved her ship. Instead of fighting, she ordered full retreat, pushing the Iron Logic's engines past their safety limits. The Devourer vessels let them go, more interested in the inhabited worlds ahead than in chasing a single fleeing ship. 3 days later, the first Council world fell, Zephyr Prime, home to 12 billion crystalline beings who had spent millennia creating works of art that spanned entire continents, was consumed in less than 6 hours. The Devourer fleet surrounded the planet like antibodies attacking an infection. Ship after ship descended through the atmosphere, their hull mouths opening to reveal machinery that defied description. The Zephyrians fought back with everything they had. Energy weapons designed for mining that could carve through mountain ranges. Defensive satellites armed with quantum disruptors. Even the planet's natural crystalline formations were converted into massive resonance weapons that could shatter enemy vessels with focused sound waves. Nothing worked. The Devourer ships absorbed every attack, growing larger and stronger with each blast of energy directed at them. Their own weapons were beyond the Council's understanding. Beams that did not destroy matter but converted it directly into energy, which was then consumed. Within hours, the great crystal cities that had stood for millennia were gone. The oceans turned to steam and vanished. Even the planet's core was drained away, leaving behind empty space, where a world had been. The few escape ships that managed to flee brought word to the rest of the Council. The enemy could not be fought with conventional weapons. Council Prime Zixthala convened an emergency session on Nexus Prime. For the first time in the Council's 3,000-year history, every species representative attended in person, rather than sending subordinates. The Great Hall buzzed with fear and confusion as delegates shared reports from the disaster at Zephyr Prime. "Our weapons are useless," reported the Voidborn delegate, their ghostly form flickering with agitation. "The enemy absorbs energy, feeds on it, grows stronger from our attacks. How do we fight something that becomes more powerful when we resist?" The Nexari representative, Fleet Commander Thisara herself, stood to address the assembly. Her mechanical implants sparked occasionally, damaged in the retreat from the Devourer fleet. "The enemy ships do not follow physics as we understand it," she reported. "They phase in and out of normal space, making targeting impossible. Their hulls seem to be partially organic, partially artificial. Most disturbing, they appear to have some form of collective intelligence. They coordinate perfectly, sharing information instantly across their entire fleet." "What about their numbers?" asked the delegate from the Thorian Republic. Thisara's expression grew grim. "Our best estimate is over 10,000 ships, with more emerging from dark space every day. And each ship is the size of a battle station, if they are all as powerful as the vessels that destroyed Zephyr Prime." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Council Prime Zixthala's crystalline form dimmed with sorrow for their lost homeworld, then brightened with determination. "We must evacuate the outer worlds and consolidate our forces," they announced. "Every ship, every weapon, every defensive system must be brought to bear against this threat. We will make our stand here at Nexus Prime. If we cannot hold the heart of galactic civilization, then civilization itself will fall." As the delegates rushed to implement desperate defense plans, one junior aide, a young Nexari analyst who had worked in intelligence, approached Fleet Commander Thisara. "Commander, I have been reviewing our databases for any possible advantage against the Devourer," the analyst said quietly. "There is one possibility we have not considered." Thisara looked at the young officer with tired eyes. "Speak." The delegation arrived at the edge of human space aboard the battered remains of what had once been the most beautiful ship in the galaxy. The Eternal Harmony had been Council Prime Zixthala's personal vessel, a work of art that combined the finest technologies of all 12 Council species. Now its crystal hull was cracked, its energy conduits dark, and its quantum drives barely functional. The ship limped toward the human border like a wounded animal seeking shelter. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the Council ships approach from the bridge of the human dreadnought Defiance. The human vessel was everything the Eternal Harmony was not. Angular where the Council ship was curved, armored where it was elegant, bristling with weapons where it had once displayed art. The contrast between the two ships told the story of the past 5 years better than any words could. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez, now wearing the insignia of a full commander, "they're requesting permission to enter human space. They claim to have a diplomatic message from the Galactic Council." Chen almost smiled at the irony. 5 years ago she had stood in their great hall as a supplicant, begging for recognition. Now they came to her, their magnificent ship broken, their proud civilization facing extinction. "Grant them permission," she ordered, "but keep our weapons trained on them. The Council has spent 5 years telling everyone in the galaxy that humans are dangerous. Let's not disappoint them." The human fleet that surrounded the Council ship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where Council vessels were individual works of art, human ships were mass-produced tools of war. They moved in perfect formations, sharing information through quantum-encrypted networks, coordinating like a single vast organism. There were hundreds of them, all built to the same aggressive design philosophy: function over form, victory over honor. The eternal harmony docked with the Defiance using emergency protocols. The airlock hissed open to reveal Council Prime Zixthala, but the proud crystalline being was changed. Cracks ran through their body like scars, and their usual bright glow was dim and flickering. Behind them came Fleet Commander Thisara, her mechanical implants sparking occasionally, and 3 other council delegates that Chen recognized from her humiliation 5 years before. The human honor guard that met them was deliberately chosen to make an impression. Each Marine stood over 2 meters tall, their bodies enhanced with genetic modifications that made them stronger and faster than any natural human. Their armor was black metal studded with sensors and weapons, designed to intimidate as much as protect. They did not salute or bow. They simply watched with the cold eyes of professional soldiers. Admiral Chen met the delegation in her ready room, a space that was all business with no decoration except for tactical displays, showing the deployment of human forces throughout the galaxy. She did not offer seats or refreshments. She simply stood behind her desk and waited. "Admiral Chen," Council Prime Zixthala began, their voice lacking the musical quality it had possessed 5 years before. I thank you for granting us safe passage into human space." "You're welcome," Chen replied simply. "What do you want?" The directness of the question clearly startled the council delegates. They were accustomed to elaborate diplomatic protocols, to ritual exchanges of courtesy before any real business could be discussed. Chen's blunt approach left them uncertain how to proceed. Fleet Commander Thisara stepped forward. "Admiral, the galaxy faces a threat unlike anything we have encountered before. An enemy has emerged from dark space, beings that call themselves the Devourer. They have already consumed 2 council worlds completely, not just destroying them but converting their entire mass into energy." Chen's expression did not change, but she gestured for the Nexari commander to continue. "Our weapons are useless against them," Thisara continued. "They absorb energy, feed on it, grow stronger from our attacks. Their technology is beyond our understanding. Their ships phase in and out of normal space. Their coordination is perfect. We estimate they have over 10,000 vessels, each the size of a battle station. And you want humanity's help," Chen said. It was not a question. Council Prime Zixthala's form brightened slightly as if Chen's understanding gave them hope. "Yes. We know that your species was rejected from the Council. We know that our words were harsh. But surely the survival of all sapient life in the galaxy is more important than past grievances." Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the broken beings before her. These were the same species that had called humanity too primitive, too young, too violent to deserve a place in galactic civilization. Now they stood in her ready room, their fleets shattered, their worlds consumed, begging for help from the species they had dismissed. "Tell me," Chen said finally, "what exactly has changed? 5 years ago, you said humans were too primitive to contribute anything of value. You said our technology was centuries behind council standards. You said our violent history made us unfit for civilized society. What's different now?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. The council delegates looked at each other, clearly uncomfortable with having their own words thrown back at them. Zixthala straightened their damaged form and spoke with something approaching their old authority. "We were mistaken. We judged your species by standards that may not have been appropriate. In our pride, we failed to see that different approaches to technology and warfare might have their own value." "Different approaches," Chen repeated. "Is that what you call it now?" Commander Thisara's mechanical eye whirred as it focused on the human admiral. "Admiral, with respect, we do not have time for extended apologies. The Devourer fleet will reach the core worlds within weeks. If we cannot find a way to stop them, every sapient species in the galaxy will be consumed, including humanity." Chen nodded slowly. "You're right, of course. The Devourer won't stop with council worlds. They'll come for human space eventually." She paused, then asked, "But why should we help you? You made it very clear that humanity has nothing to offer galactic civilization. Why would our primitive weapons and tactics be any more effective than your advanced technology?" The Voidborn delegate Whisper Veil spoke for the first time since entering the room. Their ghostly form flickered with what might have been desperation. "Because conventional wisdom has failed," they said. their voice like wind through empty caves. Our energy weapons feed the enemy. Our sophisticated tactics are countered by their collective intelligence. Our advanced technology means nothing to beings that consume matter itself. Perhaps primitive approaches will succeed where advanced ones have failed. Chen almost laughed at the irony. So you want us to fight your war because we're too stupid to know it's impossible? No, Zixthala said, their crystalline form brightening with desperate hope. We want you to fight because you think differently than we do. Because your short lives have taught you to take risks we would never consider. Because your violent history has given you knowledge of warfare that we have forgotten. Because you are unpredictable. The word hung in the air between them. Unpredictable, once an insult, now a desperate hope. Chen walked to the tactical display showing human fleet deployments. The screen showed thousands of ships positioned throughout human space, all bearing the angular, aggressive design that marked them as human-built. Before I make any decisions, Chen said, I need to know exactly what we're facing. Commander Thisara, I want complete tactical data on every engagement with the Devourer. I want sensor readings, combat reports, analysis of their capabilities, everything. Thisara nodded eagerly. Of course. I have brought all available intelligence data. Good. Chen turned back to face the council delegation. I also want something else. I want the council's formal recognition that humanity's rejection was a mistake. I want an official apology broadcast to every world in the galaxy, and I want a guarantee that when this is over, humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and privileges that entails. Council Prime Zixthala's form dimmed as they considered this demand. It was not unreasonable, but it required them to admit publicly that their proud ancient civilization had been wrong about a species they had dismissed as primitive. You have it, Zixthala said finally. All of it. The formal apology, the recognition of our error, the guarantee of full membership. But please, Admiral, we need your help. Not for our sake, but for the sake of every living being in the galaxy. Chen studied the broken delegates for another long moment. These beings had humiliated her, rejected her species, condemned humanity to isolation. It would have been satisfying to make them suffer longer, to extract a higher price for their pride. But Chen was a soldier, not a politician. She understood that personal satisfaction was less important than strategic necessity. Very well, she said. Humanity will help. But we do this our way, with our tactics following our strategies. You want unpredictable? You're about to get it. She pressed a control on her desk, opening a communication channel to the human fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Set condition red throughout human space. Begin implementation of Protocol 7 immediately. The galaxy is about to see what happens when you corner the most dangerous predator that ever evolved. The final battle began at the edge of Nexus Prime's solar system, where the combined fleets of the Galactic Council made their desperate last stand. Over 3,000 ships from 12 species hung in space like a glittering wall of metal and energy, representing the greatest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. Every advanced weapon, every sophisticated defense system, every tactical innovation developed over millennia of spacefaring civilization was arrayed against the approaching darkness. Admiral Sarah, Chen watched the deployment from the bridge of her flagship Retribution, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the largest council vessels. Around her, human ships took positions that made no sense to the council observers. Scattered formations that seemed random, weapons powered down, engines running cold. To the alien commanders, it looked like the humans were unprepared, perhaps even cowardly. They could not have been more wrong. Admiral, reported Commander Rodriguez from the tactical station, Devourer fleet has entered sensor range. Confirmed count of 12,000 vessels, including 3 megaships each larger than a space station. They're maintaining standard approach formation. Chen nodded calmly. Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 1 of Protocol 7. Across the human formations, ships that had appeared defenseless suddenly burst into activity. But instead of moving forward to join the Council battle line, they scattered in all directions using burst transmissions to coordinate their movements. To the Council observers, it looked like humanity was abandoning the fight before it had even begun. Council Prime Zixthala's voice crackled over the communication channel from their command ship. Admiral Chen, your forces appear to be retreating. Do you intend to honor our agreement? Keep watching, Chen replied simply. The Devourer fleet struck the Council line with overwhelming force. The alien vessels, each one a nightmare blend of organic curves and metallic edges, passed through the defensive formations like sharks through a school of fish. Council energy weapons fired at maximum power, plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes creating a light show that could be seen from planets away. The attacks struck the Devourer ships and vanished, absorbed into hulls that grew visibly larger and brighter with each absorbed blast. The enemy's return fire was devastating, beams of pure entropy that drained the life force from Council vessels, reducing mighty warships to empty hulks in seconds. Fleet Commander Thyssera, commanding the Council forces from her rebuilt vessel Iron Logic II, watched in horror as her carefully planned formations crumbled. The Nexari battlecruisers that had been the pride of her fleet were drained of power and left drifting. The elegant Zephyrian crystal ships shattered under weapons that converted matter directly to energy. Within minutes, half the Council fleet was gone. All ships emergency scatter, Thyssera ordered. Reform at Rally Point 7. But before the surviving Council ships could retreat, the human fleet struck. They came from everywhere at once, above, below, from the flanks, even from behind the Devourer formation. The scattered human ships had not been retreating. They had been positioning themselves for a coordinated attack that defied every principle of space warfare the Council understood. The first wave consisted of small, fast ships that the humans called wasps. These vessels carried no energy weapons at all. Instead, they were loaded with kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, and most disturbing of all, computer viruses designed to disrupt enemy systems. The wasp ships dove into the Devourer formation like bullets, their crews knowing they would not survive the encounter. The Devourer ships tried to absorb the kinetic attacks as they had absorbed energy weapons, but solid matter could not be converted as easily as pure energy. Tungsten rods traveling at relativistic speeds punched through alien hulls, creating damage that could not be healed by feeding on power. Chemical explosives detonated inside enemy vessels, their crude destructive force somehow more effective than the sophisticated weapons of the Council. But the real surprise was the computer viruses. The Devourer's collective intelligence, so superior to individual thinking, became a vulnerability when human-designed chaos programs spread through their network. The viruses did not try to shut down enemy systems. Instead, they introduced randomness, confusion, conflicting orders that turned the Devourer's perfect coordination against itself. Captain Maria Santos led the second wave aboard her assault ship Vendetta. The human Marine commander had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in Protocol 7, boarding actions against the Devourer megaships. Remember, she told her Marines over the comm system, these things feed on energy, so we go in old school. Projectile weapons only. Chemical explosives. And if you get the chance, plant a virus bomb in their computer cores. The human boarding pods were nothing like the elegant docking shuttles used by Council species. They were armored bullets designed to punch through enemy hulls and deliver their cargo of enhanced Marines directly into hostile territory. Santos felt the crushing acceleration as her pod was fired from the Vendetta's mass driver, aimed at the heart of the largest Devourer vessel. The impact nearly killed her despite the crash webbing and inertial dampeners. The pod's shaped charges blew a hole through the alien hull, and Santos led her team into a nightmare of organic corridors that pulsed like living tissue. The interior of the Devourer ship was beyond description, a blend of technology and biology that hurt to look at. The walls were covered with what looked like nerve endings. The floor felt soft and warm underfoot, and everywhere there was a sound like breathing, as if the ship itself were alive. Santos and her Marines moved through the corridors using tactics that would have been familiar to soldiers from humanity's ancient wars. They set ambushes, used grenades to collapse passages, and fought from cover with weapons that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. The Devourer defenders, creatures that looked like a cross between insects and machines, were unprepared for such primitive warfare. There, Santos shouted, pointing to what her briefings had identified as a neural hub, a massive organic computer that helped coordinate the ship's functions. Plant the charges. Her demolitions expert, Sergeant Kim, placed chemical explosives around the pulsing nerve center, while Santos and the other Marines held off increasingly desperate Devourer attacks. The aliens were trying to drain the life force from the human intruders, but the Marines' genetic enhancements made them resistant to such attacks. Charges set, Kim reported. 30 seconds. Santos keyed her radio. All teams, this is Santos. We're about to lose communication with the outside. Tell Admiral Chen that we're going to detonate our virus bomb manually. It should disrupt their hive mind for at least 10 minutes. Maria, came Admiral Chen's voice over the comm. You don't have to do this. Your team can still evacuate. Santos looked around at her Marines, young men and women who had volunteered for a mission they all knew was suicide. They looked back at her with calm acceptance. They had all grown up hearing stories about humanity's rejection by the Council, about being told they were too primitive to matter. Now they had the chance to prove that sometimes primitive was exactly what the galaxy needed. Negative, Admiral, Santos replied. This is what we trained for. This is what we're good at. Tell the Council that humanity sends its regards. The explosion that destroyed the Devourer megaship could be seen from Nexus Prime. The vessel, larger than most space stations, simply came apart as its organic systems failed and its energy absorption capabilities overloaded. The destruction sent shockwaves through the Devourer fleet's collective intelligence, leaving thousands of enemy ships confused and vulnerable. Admiral Chen seized the moment. All human forces commence final assault. Remember, we don't fight to show off. We fight to win. The human fleet abandoned all pretense of civilized warfare. Ships designed to look like cargo vessels revealed hidden weapons. Vessels that appeared to be retreating suddenly reversed course and rammed enemy ships at maximum velocity. Human captains used tactics that violated every rule of engagement the Council had ever written, attacking damaged enemies instead of giving them a chance to surrender, targeting refugee ships that might contain Devourer spores, even using their own damaged vessels as guided missiles. It was ugly, desperate, and utterly without honor. It was also effective. The Devourer fleet, magnificent in its perfection and terrible in its power, began to crumble under attacks it could not understand or counter. Their ability to absorb energy was useless against kinetic weapons. Their collective intelligence was crippled by chaos viruses. Their superior technology meant nothing against enemies who fought like cornered animals with nothing to lose. The turning point came when Commander Torres, leading a squadron of human fighters, managed to plant a nuclear mine inside another megaship. The primitive fission weapon, laughably crude by Council standards, detonated at the moment when the ship's energy absorption systems were trying to process a massive overload of conflicting data. The resulting explosion created a chain reaction that destroyed half the remaining Devourer fleet. The survivors, their hive mind shattered and their coordination broken, began to retreat toward dark space. But Admiral Chen was not finished with them.